Turn that TV off. Yeah. You can see it.
Okay.
Okay, you're fine. You're fine.
So you that
Yeah.
they don't have them. Okay.
We're ready to start.
Yeah.
We'll call this public hearing to order Monday, June 24th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. City Hall. Mary Weston, the city attorney, and Nick Forgeot representing Susan Forgeot and Kaylee Johnson. I want to start the meeting off to advise everyone. This is the parties' process and time to present to the council. And I want to observe that time and acknowledge their ability to address the council unencumbered by the audience. So I will admonish the audience right now with a warning that no outburst or any gestures of anything that would distract the proceedings of this public hearing. Otherwise, if so, you'll be asked to be removed. So please honor and respect everyone's ability to speak. Tonight's hearing, we're going to start off with 10 minutes with Mary Weston presenting the city's case, so to speak, and then we will acknowledge Nick Forgeot representing Susan Forgeot and Kaylee Johnson with an additional 10 minutes. And if there's no other questions from the council, go ahead.
I did want to ask the council,
I can't hear what you're saying.
I have distilled the argument as much as I can.
We have a microphone.
Okay. I've distilled the argument as much as I can, but it appears that it's taking me still a little bit more than 10 minutes in order to present the full facts. We've already agreed that rather than having a hearing, we would just present our cases. I hope the council would consider allowing a couple extra minutes if it comes to the 10 and I haven't quite made it.
Ms. Weston, if you would, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. What I'm passing out is a packet of 6 exhibits that I'll be offering, or just not as much offerings, just sort of use as a guideline to help us understand the time period and the kinds of things that we've done in order for the city and the council to vote on the resolution that we're here about tonight. First of all, I'm Mary Weston, I'm the city attorney, and I've been asked to put this together. I am not here. You can't hear me? No, they can't hear me? Okay. That's pretty unusual. Usually everyone can hear me. Mary Weston, city attorney. I've been asked to put something together for tonight. Now, I want you all to understand that one thing about this is that I didn't do this. Okay, when I went down the road, I went like this. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep us out of the weeds and just try to get us to the facts and the things that I know that is presented to me in order to help us understand how the city got to this decision on that particular resolution we're going to discuss. So first of all, we have City Exhibit 1. That's the very first page of the packet. And it's pretty much the ordinance here from the city of Louisiana regarding the removal of appointed officers, which is the issue that we're dealing with tonight. And it essentially says, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, that the mayor, with a consent of a majority of the city council, may remove an appointed officer from office at will, with or without cause. In other words, the mayor and also the council has the discretion to remove someone from an appointed position like the tourism commission or any of your other commissions or boards or things of that nature that you have here in the city of Louisiana. Now, the person that's being removed can request a hearing, and that's what we're here for tonight. We have decided, though, to truncate that or make it just a presentation more than a hearing. Otherwise, you have to listen to a bunch of legalese, mumbo jumbo, and I know you guys really don't want to do that. So, City Exhibit 1, that's really the ordinance, and you can get that online if you want to look at it. All the board members have a packet. So let's start. So back last year in around August, there was a meeting that was scheduled August 25th of 2023 with Tim Carter, the mayor, B. Skylander, Susan Frigeau, and Alyssa Horton. The purpose of that meeting was to help the newly formed Louisiana Tourism Committee to understand the policies and procedures for invoicing and paying bills and things of that nature. We had to go through that process because the funds and other duties were turned over to the city through statute, okay? So there was a meeting. In that meeting with those people, information was exchanged to tell people what the spending levels were, who you had to get permission from, all the things that you have to do in order to be able to pay your bills, okay? So that was done on August 25th of 2023. Back in October of 2023, we had a liaison, and the liaison was Glenda. And Glenda was sent a copy of the General Procurement Procedures Guideline that's to be used for the Louisiana Tourism Committee, and also the Louisiana Tourism Committee Policy and Procedures. So she is the liaison between the city council and the tourism committee who sent these documents so that she could be the proper liaison between these two entities, if you will. October of 2023. So let's fast forward now to 2024. Been fairly quiet. There's little bumps here and there, but it's fairly quiet between different entities, which I'm sure that Nick will get into that. I'm not going to, but in March 18th of 2024, Mayor Carter received an email forwarded to him from Emily Sitton. Emily happens to be one of the members on the tourism committee. And in that particular document, we have Haley Johnson sending this email to Thomas at Missouri Life, Debbie at Missouri Life, Susan Frigeau, B. Scandler, Jody Reese, and Emily Sitton. I'm not going to read you the whole email, but here's the part that's important. Since I know we are binded by the time deadline for the May issue for print, and in order to not have this package go through our city council for approval, and it says in quotes, any purchase over 5,000 must be approved by our city council at a city meeting, and the next city council meeting is not for 2 weeks. We want to be billed separately for each facet for this print and digital program to the city to be paid. And what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that we have very specific rules in this city about how we pay bills. No one has the authority just to go out and cut checks willy-nilly left and right. Okay, we have to follow rules. If it's over 5,000 bucks, we have to go to the city council. They have to approve it. Okay, because we want to make sure we understand where the money's going and that's being spent properly. Okay, this raised a red flag for the city, for the mayor. Part of that email also says everyone, he emails everyone on this board. I have a huge issue with our tourism commission with their intent to circumvent the city's procurement process. It is a direct ethic violation that goes against our procurement policy and procedure. Okay, and then we have a couple of other things which really aren't that important in here. So after this happened, the next thing that the city mayor did was that he went around and started asking people, hey, what happened at this meeting? I wasn't there. And so there was a Zoom recording that took place. And so April Gilbert, the city clerk, she reviewed that. And at 1 hour and 24 minutes, Haley asked Glenda if the advertising had been taken in front of the council since it was a total of $10,000. Glenda said yes. It has to be taken in front of the council. Susan said that. Susan then talked how it can be broken down into different categories. Then they went on and talked about other business. An affidavit that was signed by Emily indicates that everything separately, they could go around the council by having everything billed separately. Affidavit from Emily. We have another affidavit signed by Chris Sitton that also indicates concern about how they can afford it and how asked about splitting the payments so they had to go in front of the council. Another person. We have affidavit of Nick Bluebright, and if I say that wrong, I apologize. He also indicated during that discussion, Mrs. Sherman stated that as long as the money didn't come out at the same time, it was under $5,000, then the kitty would not have to approve it from the city council. So in other words, we have a meeting where everyone knows what the rules are regarding spending money. Okay? And they sat around and talked about it and decided that, now, if we break these little chunks, then we could go ahead and buy these services, but we don't have to get permission from them. And who do these people represent? You, they do, they're voted. Well, we can have an argument about that later. But, yeah, please, you're not here to. Okay. Whatever. So. After this investigation was done, a resolution was written, resolution 12-2024, asking that, the mayor, with consent of the council, remove Susan Fregeau and Kaylee Johnson as directors, officers of the Louisiana Tourism Commission, effective immediately. It was ruled on and it was agreed upon. That's pretty much what happened.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fregeau?
Well, great. Thank you everyone for having us. Thank you everyone for being here. So I think that the previous statement is a little bit incomplete, and what we want to do tonight is to give a little bit more context for what was going on. First, I gave you a small packet. The first ones are, there are two different statutes. There's one that controlled the previous LVCB and one that controls the Louisiana Tourism Commission. Mary noticed there was a new statute that would be transitioned to the Louisiana Tourism Commission. That happened about a year ago. And so the important language of chapter 67.1364, subsection 2, the second sentence. The commission shall administer the money within the limits of the budget approved by the city or county governing body. That's the effective language. And so that raises two questions. The first is, what does it mean to administer the money? And the second is, what does it mean for the governing body to be setting limits using a budget? On June 16th, there was an email exchange between the mayor and Susan. I apologize, I'm going to try very hard to refer to her as Susan. That's not the usual way that I refer to her. So basically, the mayor said, you're going to need to be operating under city procedures. And Susan said, let us know what those procedures are. We'd be happy to comply with those. And then the mayor stated, the tourism board will administer the monies collected for promoting tourism for Louisiana, basically following the statute. The only difference, he says, is where the money is kept and how it is accounted for. The board will meet like it always had and conduct business as it always has. I really do not know how to convey it any differently. Right? Presenting it as open and shut, it's the same as it was. You're going to keep on that way. There were some more interactions late August, early September. And this involved, the budget concerns. Right, so mayor's given us an idea of administer, keep going like you've been doing. You've got authority to spend what you think is right for tourism. Regarding the budget, the Louisiana Tourism Commission wanted to disperse some money and was asking, has the budget been approved? Because the statute says within the limits. The mayor responded, the committee is not held up by their budget or the council's approval or denial of the committee's budget. Please continue and don't delay action due to any misunderstandings. Please use this email for your confirmation. What I'm doing here tonight, using it for confirmation. The budget was not to hold them up. In other words, you can act independently, right? It doesn't depend upon this budget. And he had even said that in a later meeting on September 11th, that a budget is a budget, there's nothing steadfast. And we can modify it to mid-year budget review, right? So things are open, we can work with you. This money is yours to spend. So that more or less gives us our answers, our initial answers on what does administer mean, what is within the limits of the budget. But then there's the question of what are exactly the terms of this policy? And Mary referred to a meeting on the 25th. I don't have anything from that meeting. I don't know exactly what was discussed. But what I do know is in that meeting I referenced on September 11th, the mayor said anything more than 3,000 or 5,000, there's a procurement process. And Susan asked, so the threshold is 5,000? The mayor said, to be 100%, we'll get that for you. Seeming to indicate that it would be provided in written form at a later time. On September 15th, there was a further request for the procedure. And this exchange was the result of a spat that led to the first request for the removal of Susan from the Tourism Commission. And I'd like to read from an email that we were provided regarding the reasons for that removal. Mayor Carter sent, besides her personal differences, Susan has deliberately sandbagged the process of the committee with delay upon delay due to her vendetta towards this administration. In the past few weeks, I have met with her and emailed more emails, letting Mrs. Peugeot know the process and to go ahead and act on spending funds. Still, she wanted to come before the council to request a budget modification that was unnecessary. It was explained yet again that the committee had authority to spend the funds. So here we have a second statement. Go ahead and spend the funds. That's what you're authorized to do. And the second, this is not a position for Mrs. Peugeot to promote politics, and thusly reasoning for my removal of it. So the reason for the first removal, the first one, is delay. She was being too cautious and bothering too much trying to get this sorted out. So that brings us to February 15th, 2024. As Mary mentioned, Glenda Sherman was the liaison to the Louisiana Tourism Commission. And at that time, she was presenting some contracts from a company called Lamar regarding billboards. Those were in the amount of $575, $5,005, $4,095, $710. So those were presented by Glenda. And so at that meeting, Mayor Carter made a statement. This, if you look at the video, it's at 18:50 and 25 seconds, and that's the internal time on the video, not the one that you move the slider to find. That's the internal marking. The mayor said, so the only ask for council right now regarding these contracts is for the 5,500 one. And okay, because the skin is within their budget. As far as the reason that we got to ask the council is it's over $5,000. So the council has to approve that. In other words, that's clearly indicating that out of these 4 contracts that were negotiated directly with the same company, Lamar, only the one that was over $5,000 was going to need to go to the council for approval. Seems a pretty clear statement to me of how the policy is going to be interpreted. So now we finally come to the smoking gun email that Mary read you from. I won't read you that same section. I agree that that is the important section, but I do have some comments. First, this is a multimedia package that was being offered by Missouri Life. And so they were presented as 4 separate pieces, 4 separate contracts. Each one was priced individually. And in previous dealings with Missouri Life,
Can I ask a question? If they're priced individually, could you buy them individually?
that, I think they had offered them as a package.
So in other words, it wasn't 4 individual things, it was one package.
But they were gonna have separate contracts.
Still, it's one thing. If they wouldn't allow you to buy them separately at the same price, then they were not 4 separate things.
Well, that is precisely what I think is under discussion. And
Council, we'll reserve our questions till after the presentation.
But I would like to note that this mirrors fairly closely the situation with Lamar. And so even if they had been asking for these elements to be split up, I think it's close enough to the Lamar situation that we cannot assume that their intent was to avoid the procurement process. Also, in the past, contracts have been sent out separately. There was also a budget that had been presented to council previously. And that had included $8,000 for print advertising. And the breakdown had $5,500 for Missouri Life. And so there had already been a budget presented with a specific line item involving part of the contract here. And if it's already been approved in the budget, and it was promised it was going to be brought as is into the total city budget at mid-year, then it would have already been specifically approved. All right, moving on to the evidence. Mary referenced the affidavits. There were a total of 3 of them. I would like to note an affidavit generally has a number of things. It has the name of the person signing it. It has the person's signature. It has a date. It has language that it is a statement given under oath. And it usually has a notary block, so there's somebody witnessing that it was given under oath. None of them have all of that. One of them doesn't even have a name on it. I can infer who the name is because it says, "You must be Emily." I stated yes. So it's obviously written from Emily's perspective. And then none of the first 2 have any signatures nor any language about swearing. And you can see here, I've highlighted in these first 2, the parts that aren't just complaining about how they don't like Susan. It's basically one line on the one, 2 lines on the other. But what all 3 of them have in common is that they are misleading on the main point. I watched the meeting myself. I went and I looked at the recording of it. And never did anybody ask, how can we avoid taking these to council? The only question was asked was whether we have to take these to council. And it's true, the initial answer they thought was, well, it's 10,000, I guess so. But later they said, well, it is the 4 contracts. And again, just a month before that, the Lamar contracts had been dealt with as 4 separate contracts. And so they decided, these are 4 separate contracts. We won't have to take them before council. And that was important because they had a deadline coming up. If they were going to miss the approval of the Missouri Life, they wanted to get an ad in for spring fling, and it had to be done right away if it was going to make the print deadline. So they thought, all right, we just had this with Lamar, we can get this through. In addition, that's.
Yes.
Also, I would ask, I probably only need another 2 or 3 minutes. That's it. And I would like to address one thing Mary said. Thank you, folks. So
No. There's got to be a motion on the floor. There's not a motion.
I would ask one of the council members to make a motion to allow me 5 more minutes.
I make a motion to allow 3 more minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor, take a roll call, please.
Yes.
Councilman Price,
Yes.
Councilman Phillips,
Yes.
Councilwoman Portis,
Yes.
Councilman Gott,
Yes.
Councilman Gilmer,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Sutton.
Yes.
Nick, you got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Additionally, Glenda looked at the camera at one point and said, because Chase Hunt had asked a question and it said something about when this goes before council. Glenda turned and looked at Chase and said, they won't have to go before council because they're the 4 separate contracts, right? That is what they, in good faith, decided. And So Glenda's looking this way, Emily sitting is here, Chris sitting is here, Chase Hunt is behind the computer here, and Nick Lubrecht is over here. So they all must have heard her say that. Nobody brought it up again saying, I think that this is improper. When they took the votes, they voted on each element separately. So there were 4 votes. All 4 votes were unanimous to approve these contracts. Additionally, I'd like to note what evidence was missing from the removal. It took a month of investigation, yet the accused were not contacted as far as I know. In addition, the 2 council members that were witnesses, direct witnesses in the meeting, were not on the council anymore at the meeting in April when they were removed. I don't know that the members were contacted. I don't believe that they gave any statements. I didn't see it when I watched the recording of the meeting. And affidavits were only sought from a few of the people. There was apparently time for that. And then Don, I know you had specifically asked what had been done to attempt to resolve this, right? Well, Glenda and Susan immediately sent answers to the accusations, and they also attended the March 25th council meeting and tried to address it. And the mayor had said to them, this is not the appropriate forum. He said that you're dismissed, but he never got in touch about what the appropriate forum was and how to discuss it. Never contacted them for statements. And so finally, I would like to make just a couple points about fairness. They didn't receive any notice that the hearing was coming, and the agenda just had committee procurement issues. It's not a committee, it's a commission, and it said Louisiana Tourism Board for the resolution. The full title of the resolution is much more descriptive, as you will have seen, specifically stating that it's for the removal of appointed officers from the Tourism Commission. That would have given proper notice of what was being brought up. Also, the unanimous votes resulted only in the proposed removal of 2 of the 4 members. So it wasn't addressed with the commission as a whole. It was instead addressed by the removal of 2 of the 4 members that voted. And finally, there was a post hoc authorization by the mayor. When Susan said after the spending freeze that this was going to stop the Missouri Life print ad for the spring fling, April emailed back, I've been in conversation with the mayor and he has approved the purchase order for the Missouri Life advertising component below. So apparently, the thing that they were removed for, trying to approve it without council, is something that the mayor can do without bringing before council. But it's not something that they can do. I don't think that quite washes. So our request is simply that resolution 12-2024 be rescinded.
Thank you for your time. Mary, there's 3 minutes that the council, if you feel like you need to redress 3 minutes.
I guess the only thing is that, I think we tried to make it a little bit fairer is that these affidavits were set out properly. And I just want to say that you and I had decided at the beginning of this, that we'd make this as informal as possible. If I thought that you were gonna hold us to the legally requirement of an affidavit, I would have gone and done that. But we had an agreement that we would be very informal so that we could make sure that people understood what we were talking about.
And let me be clear, I didn't mean that for tonight. I only meant that
Okay,
they were presented to council that way,
okay,
that they were affidavits.
okay.
Not that for you, Don.
Just want to be clear about that.
Yes, absolutely.
If we
All right.
handle it, I would differ. That's all I have.
Can we make?
Yeah. You have a question? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Nick,
Hey, quiet, please.
Sorry, sir.
my question on this boils down to really, was it 4 contracts or 1 contract? And Missouri Life contract, could it have been part A, part B, part C, part D? Could you have gotten all of those for $10,000? And could you have gotten each individual part whenever you wanted them, so that those 4 things would add up to $10,000? Now, as I understand it, that is not the case. That they were giving a special deal that you had to get all 4 if you wanted the $10,000 package. The Lamar situation is not appropriate, is not comparable. Because the Lamar is separate individual things. Those were bought at separate times, and you would get those things at those prices, whether you bought them together or individually. The Missouri Life is not a together or individually thing. It is buy them together or else. Therefore, there is no way that that contract was for under $5,000. It was over $5,000. And my employee handbook that I got when I became a council member, it says very specifically on page 42 that anything over $5,000 has to be approved by the city council. Now, there are so many emails and stories going along because everybody just keeps right on talking and they have completely ignored the major fact. The major fact of this is how much was the contract for? And the contract was for $10,000. It could not be purchased individually for the same price. It could not be purchased individually for the same price, those four elements. It could not be. No, they could not. You told me personally. You
Quiet.
told me personally
Quiet,
that they could
Quiet.
not be purchased individually.
council, we have reached our time limit for this hearing. So the questions is before the council, so.
I think
The Missouri Life contract was not for $10,000 or 25, 25, 25, 25. It was for 5,000, 4,000, 5,000 and 3,000 or something like that. If you bought them separately. If you bought them all together, it was $10,000. Therefore, that contract was over the $5,000 limit. Lamar is not comparable. Those are separate things. Each one of those things could be bought then or later at that price.
Did not have.
Therefore, they are not
$10,000 all the time. And Tim knows that, and
Okay.
Tim he sent the money to her
These
after the fact.
Council, we'll bring it back in. You're not recognized. You're not recognized, So-
You know it.
council.
Like, just 1 minute to finish.
Yes. This boils down to a very simple thing. What contract was what? One contract is for
Okay.
$2,000.
Calling the question, entertain a motion to adjourn the special hearing. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?